Today on MetCast, I'm going to explain a trade that I think is realistic for the Mets to make to jumpstart their offseason as they head into 2025. Okay, Mets fans, the offseason is finally here. And today I wanted to talk about the first article that I wrote subsequent to the season, unfortunately ending against the Dodgers. We get right into it here on MetCast. And we wanted to talk about some of the actual situations that could happen this offseason. Obviously, there's a lot going on in free agency, some of our own talent that we have to deal with, some names like Pete Alonso, Ryan Stanek, Sean Manaea. Are they going to bring back Quintana on another one-year deal? How's the back end of that rotation going to look? Are the Mets going to pursue an ace of Corbin Burns type, or are they going to go after Juan Soto or Christian Walker, or what's the DH situation going to look like? There's so much to answer this offseason. And David Stearns came out and said it in his press conference yesterday that the Mets have a ton of money coming off the books this year. And they're going to spend it. So our article yesterday that I wrote on MetCast Pod on Twitter, one of our first articles we released through Twitter articles, talks about a major trade on the horizon. Now, one thing that I keyed in on David Stearns' press conference yesterday was he was talking about how he is very interested in the trade market. Now, we can go back years ago. The Mets have made a lot of trades. They spent poorly in free agency with the Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. Some fans think that Steve Cohen is going to be gun shy because of those moves not working out. But I know 100% that is not true. So I want to get into the article that we made here. Let me pull it up really quick. So major trade on the horizon. I think that this trade proposal that I'm going to make here, or the player that I think the Mets should pursue, is A, very realistic. B, will have to get paid very soon. And, obviously Steve Cohen has the resources, as David Stearns would like to put it, to make this happen. So let's get into it right here. So when I first thought about trades or holes that the Mets need to fill, it's very easy to jump right to free agency. Now I'm trying to bring it down to a realistic perspective. What are the odds the Mets bring back Pete Alonso? Now, there were rumors the Mets offered him a 6-year contract coming into this season that he and his agent both denied. And then he's going to free agency. He's coming off a down year. He had a solid postseason, but overall, he had a down year. He's also heading into his age 30 season. And as we know, David Stearns, going back to his days with Milwaukee, he might not be typically a David Stearns type of guy. Stearns is not the one to sign guys into their mid to late 30s, which it looks like Alonso's looking for. If he declined 6 years at the beginning of the season, we're seeing projections anywhere from 7 for 185, 180 range to all the way to 8 for 210. So I guess it'll depend on where Alonso's market goes, but I want to take a look back into, and as you can see here in my article, right away I mentioned Lindor. When Steve Cohen first bought the team, what is one of the first things he did? He traded Andres Gimenez and the other shortstop we had, Ahmed Rosario. Ahmed Rosario was a top 5, guaranteed an overall top 5 prospect. And he traded both of them away to Francisco Lindor. And prior to the season starting, Lindor got his 10-year contract. And that's where I'm coming to revisit. So we talk about that. We, talk about the long-term contract with Lindor. And, as I say here in my article, it's time for the Mets to take a similar approach. That's why we brought Steve Cohen here. Maybe he can get a player of this ilk that I'm going to talk about. And he's young. He's around the same age as Juan Soto. He's playing for a losing team. He's got 1 year of control left on his contract. And that is, I'll get right to it, none other than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the first baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto right now is light years away from the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees in competing with them. They don't have the pitching, and clearly they assembled this juiced lineup last year, and that didn't help them at all. As we all know, Guerrero got off to a poor start this season, but boy, did he end up with some great numbers. 323 batting average, 30 homers, 103 RBIs, and a 940 OPS for somebody who's 25 years old. This could be Pete Alonso's replacement. He's got 1 year left on his contract this year. It would take significant assets to get him here, but I think Toronto, and the whispers are, may be willing to listen this offseason. So maybe you get a guy like Guerrero in here. He could be your Pete Alonso replacement. And I know, Met fans, that will not be the only move that David Stearns makes. He'll look at the top of the free agent pitching market, the Corbin Burnses of the world. And I definitely think even if they do make this move for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., this would not necessarily be the end of the line for what David Stearns does. I just don't think it would be. I think that David Stearns is going to be looking at the Juan Sotos, the Christian Walkers. Dare I say it, if somehow David Stearns thinks that Mark Vientos is only going to be a designated hitter at this level, or maybe a designated hitter that could play first, third, maybe a little bit of left field, do the Mets go and attack an Alex Bregman in free agency, a proven bat in the postseason? He had a bit of a down year this year. He started out ice cold the first couple of months, but he finished off the season pretty damn good. So that's a player that I would look for David Stearns to potentially make the phone call on. Free agency is right around the corner. Feel free to let me know what you think. Maybe you think I'm nuts. Maybe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not the answer of our prayers. But I will say this. Just think of a lineup. Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Mark Vientos. That is one of the top 4 lineups in baseball. And I spoke to a former Mets player earlier prior to the season ending, and he told me that the Mets have good talent, very good talent. But the one thing that's going to hold them back from winning a World Series is they don't have enough elite talent. Look at the players that are on both sides of the ball as we head into the World Series tonight. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole for the Yankees. On the other side, you have the Otanis, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freemans. The Mets don't have that caliber of player on their roster. And for them to compete and potentially win a World Series next year, they're going to have to add that elite level talent. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I nuts? Would you want to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here get an extension and be a lifelong Met to end his career? Only time will tell. Until next time, peace.